Hi, welcome back to Theological Thoughts. Today's question is one I engaged with a few days ago, and it was, what was it about Christianity that really ticked off the Romans? And was it because they refused to worship their gods or pledge allegiance to Caesar? And what was the main dislike behind Christianity for the Romans? So the answer is kind of a bit of both. Romans frequently referred to Christians as atheists, which in modern usage that might seem like nonsense because the Christians believe in God. But in the Roman times, that was in reference to someone who denied the pantheon of other gods. So because they denied all the Roman gods, they were atheists in the Romans' eyes. And Caesar was considered sovereign, and in some cases was thought to be divine. You got what was called the emperor cult. So even if the emperor themselves didn't actually think themselves divine, in like a literal sense, although some did, there was still this whole idea that they were divine, the Son of God, things like that, which is also why when the gospel is pronounced that Jesus is the Son of God and the good news is proclaimed, that was like a royalty call for a new king, which also went smack in the face of the Romans. So as Christians were having none of that about the emperor being divine and proclaiming Christ as the only king, they obviously went directly against Roman interests and the Roman beliefs, and that was seen as disloyal to the empire. The Roman historian Tacitus called Christians a class of men loathed for their vices, and in reference to Christianity itself, he said it was a pernicious superstition and a disease in his annals, written around 115 to 117 AD. So you can see the Romans had a really nice view of Christianity. And Christians were also seen as acting counter to the good of society, and thus were treated with suspicion, especially since their rituals were guarded from unbelievers, like the Eucharist. You couldn't be part of that until you were baptized, which also led to rumours about Christians being cannibals and having incest parties. That's mainly because obviously they referred to each other as brothers and sisters, but they also had things called the agape feast, or love feasts, which was a completely platonic or non-sexual anyway thing. Obviously the Romans thought love feasts were all about orgies and incest and literally eating the flesh and blood of each other. So you can see wild rumours flew around which led to Romans and the emperors thinking that these people were pretty weird and not good for society. Later on in around 196 AD, Christian apologist Tertullian wrote in his one of his apologies about the negative attitudes that the Romans had towards Christians. And he said, "They think the Christians the cause of every public disaster, of every affliction with which the people are visited. If the Tiber rises high as the city walls, if the Nile does not send its waters up over the fields, if the heavens give no rain, if there is an earthquake, if there is famine or pestilence, straight away the cry is, 'Away with the Christians to the lions!'" So you see, whatever happened, Christians were blamed. And this probably stems back to around 60 AD, 63, I think, or around that time, when the Great Fire of Rome broke out and Nero famously blamed the Christians for it. So they've never had a good time. So, all in all, it's a mixture of things of what caused the Romans to really hate Christianity. But generally they were just seen as a suspicious bunch, being subversive towards the society and the emperor. And because in the gods' view, in the Romans' view, the gods were meant to be kept happy to stop them from bringing terror down on you, or like earthquakes and things. So because the Christians weren't sacrificing to them and ignoring them purposely, that was a real threat in the Romans' eyes to the good of the society as a whole. So they got the blame, and they got thrown to the lions, or put on pikes and set alight, like Nero did to light his garden with Christians. So I hope this has been an interesting little trip through history about why Christians were persecuted so much in the early days. And if you like this, please subscribe, like the video, share it, and come back for the next one. See you soon.